Okay, recording this video Sunday 29th of December 2013. If you celebrate Christmas, hope you had a great time. Been offline for a couple of weeks, not put anything up on the website since I think the 15th of December. Anyway, so we've been traveling in the meantime. Left Biarritz in France, came through Paris. We're currently in Toronto in Canada, and as soon as we hit the ground in Toronto, this is what happened. It's kind of unbelievable. This is the aftermath of an ice storm, photograph taken just from a couple of blocks from where we're staying. And never been through an ice storm myself. This is where the rain falls instead of as snow. It falls and immediately kind of freezes very close to the ground as ice. And so all the trees get kind of overloaded with ice on them, and the branches break, give way. You can see there are kind of above ground power lines as well throughout a lot of the city, and so these kind of falling branches take down the power lines. So luckily we didn't lose power, but we did lose internet for about 5 or 6 days. So no internet, no telephone, no cable TV. And that was kind of interesting for someone who lives and breathes online to be disconnected for that long. It's kind of a little bit of a challenge, but anyway. So things are kind of getting back to normal. I suppose if it's got to happen any time of year, it's good to happen, now when the market's kind of just a little bit thinly traded, kind of junky, not a lot kind of going on. But anyway, that's what's been happening to us. In terms of the markets, it's been, the usual kind of business around a major holiday around Christmas. The volume kind of totally dries up. This is a volume chart. Looking back at the last couple of months, you can see I put out a post just before the Fed announcement. This is Ben Bernanke kind of speaking here, where they're kind of tapering a little bit, but then also kind of keeping rates lower longer. And the market saw that as bullish. All of a sudden we have a big red bar kind of come in here. Explosive buying volume. Seats are support level here, pull back in an uptrend, kind of goes off, and we're off to a little bit of an uptrend. So Christmas rally, bang on schedule with a Fed announcement, not unexpected. The Fed is at the moment is the only thing that kind of counts. No one cares about earnings or the economy. It's just what the Fed is doing. So it's just these kind of micro moves, micro little announcements by the Fed, kind of small changes in policy and so on that kind of affecting the market right now. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't really a big kind of announcement in terms of what the Fed were doing, really. And yet it had this kind of huge impact on the market. We're kind of up to new highs. But look at this, the volume's really, really light kind of going on up here. We're making pullback to end of trend at some point. The uptrend kind of continues. I showed this chart last time on the video. This is the NASDAQ just using beta X trend, trailing stop based on exhaustion volume. And you can see it's just been trailing this stop up and up and up. And this last kind of up leg led by the Fed here, bang, 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 kind of up to these kind of highs up here. So we're trailing that kind of stop up. And, this uptrend has got to work itself out before it kind of reverses. I mean, we're heading up for a change in trend, a big kind of change in trend at some point, because we're kind of overbought, overvalued, all of those kind of things. But that's, it's got to play itself out across the time frames. And just looking at the daily, the weekly, the monthly chart, we're above resistance on these charts, making pullback to end of trend on the daily chart. We then have to put in pullback to end of trend on the weekly, and probably pullback to end of trend on the monthly. So we're going to go through a period where it's a topping out kind of period over a long period of time, over several months, before we get kind of a change in trend and maybe kind of a move, sustained move to the downside. Because all the moves to the downside, in the last 6 months have been incredibly minor. A matter of not even a week, and then we just kind of set off to the upside again. But you can see here, because of the light trading, it's all been kind of Rambo pattern, low volume up bar type stuff. No demand type bars up here at the highs, both on the weekly and the monthly. Not unusual for this time of year to put in those kind of patterns. And if you look on the monthly, it's been a series of Rambo patterns. This is a low volume melt up that we've been having for the last year and a half. There's very little participation. If you look at kind of the overall rates in terms of total volume traded, total number of trades, total number of participants, all that type of stuff, it's a smaller and smaller number of people to get involved. It's you can also see it on the Google searches for things like, I was checking this out the other day, the number of people that are searching for, day trading or forex or stock market or whatever. It's like those searches are down to 50% or down a good third from what they were 2 or 3 years ago. It's like there's lack of interest in what's kind of going on as the market kind of melts up. So that's what these kind of Rambo patterns and low volume up bars are showing, to me at least. And in terms of the tip bar charts, 40,500 tip bar chart, this was the Fed announcement here. This is where I was putting out a video last time. I was saying looking for an exhaustion sell signal to kind of put in the bottom here. That was what we got on this chart on the 40,500. If we go to the next one down, the 13,500, that was an exhaustion selling signal there into this kind of pullback to end of trend pattern here. So that was enough apparently to kind of flush out the last of the sellers at that point, and then we bounced off that support, bang, into another uptrend. So this is the volume getting us going. Kind of that was the Fed announcement day, kind of getting this trend going to the upside, and now on a left shoulder we're kind of getting an exhaustion pattern, even with the light volume that we've had over the last few days. That kind of exhaustion pattern setting a left shoulder potentially there. So let's see if we put him kind of pull back to end of trend. End of year is always interesting because a lot of the big money is kind of doing asset allocation stuff, big kind of changes and moves. So we might start to see some changes in trend kind of happening in various markets. Not sure if I mentioned, kind of people are calling the some of the moves that have been happening in some of the markets fat finger moves. Saw that on Zero Hedge. It's basically just thinly traded. It's not many people at the bid and the ask. Everybody's away on vacation. The people at their trading desks are basically the juniors that have to sit through the quiet holiday period, and you get things like this. This was copper the other day. So just enormous kind of range here, fairly thinly traded during that day, and kind of just ended up at the end of the day, kind of middle of that range. And these things happen. What we have to do is just basically kind of sit and wait, kind of play this thing out, because now that the range of that bar is kind of in, so the highs and lows of that are relatively significant in terms of showing where people are interested in kind of coming in as buyers or sellers. And it's interesting that the high of that bar was kind of close to where the breakdown level was on the weekly chart after putting in pullback to dirty end of trend. So this is the copper chart, which I was kind of bullish on back here, but kind of faded away at 333 was my kind of breakout level that I was interested in this potentially kind of breaking into an uptrend. But at the moment, yes, we've got an exhaustion bullish divergence pattern kind of come in here that's put in that bottom just under 320, and it's kind of done this move here. But let's wait and see how this thing kind of backs out. I need to see a blue professional down bar coming into this breakout level to see this potentially turning into an uptrend on the copper chart, and then commitment of traders needs to kind of fall in line. It's not happened yet, but that'll be kind of interesting in the new year as people are starting to reevaluate the big kind of asset allocation stuff. Again, another kind of big fat finger. No, it's not fat finger necessarily. It's just thinly traded and kind of ends up with these kind of funky looking range bars. This is the pound on Friday, so again, kind of jacks all the way up. Been bullish on the pound ever since the breakout. Remember this was the breakout, the Thanksgiving kind of breakout in the British pound, and we're continuing in an uptrend. We got a little bit of lack of demand here with Rambo patterns on the weekly chart. We've also had a bit of exhaustion and bearish divergence on a left shoulder here. So again, let's wait. Still an uptrend on these time frames. So, but the next kind of entry point to kind of look at this to kind of get in, we have to sort out this kind of range of this bar first. That needs to be kind of worked through, because that's obviously up at 166, an important type level. And similar type thing on euro, same thing on the Friday. So we need to just sit back and let this thing digest. And we've got time over leading up to the new year and the first few days of the new year. These things will work themselves out, and then we'll get a better sense of where the continuation kind of comes. Very bullish on the pound. That's been pretty clear in the videos kind of over the last several months. Euro a little bit less so, but it's interesting they're starting to move a little bit in tandem. Gold now. Gold. We're at 120, 1200 here. 1200, absolutely critical level. We put in our pullback to end of trend. But it doesn't look like there's enough to save this quite yet at 1200. I'll be really interested to see if we finally get that kind of capitulation type volume below 1200, a spike below 1200, all the volume kind of comes in, everybody kind of gives off the ghost, and then it kind of reverses and goes the other way. We've still got, again, I've been saying we've still got time to go on gold. We're below support on the daily chart, so this has to make out pullback to end of trend for this move to kind of complete on the downside, and then we'll start to maybe potentially build enough of a base in order to start to rally this next year. That's going to be really interesting to me. One of the guys I follow is Martin Armstrong, and he's very, very bearish on gold, and has been for a very long time. No question about that. But he's not seeing a rally potentially in gold really in the next year, and I'm just wondering if we're going to see that pattern over the next several weeks, where we can start to see a rally in gold. And silver charts are very similar. Aussie dollar, my friend, the Aussie dollar continuing to kind of crack to new lows. We're at 88 down here, and again, just look at the last 2 or 3 days. Just these amateur bars, very thinly traded amateur stuff kind of going on here. It's interesting. It's amateur down bars. This last little sequence here, it's kind of the difference in the two. Amateur up bars shows the amateurs are being wrong-footed. They're going the wrong way, and the professionals just use that to kind of get short into that move down. This move down was kind of amateur down bars. You can see in that little kind of testing down. So we might have a little bit of a rally back up in the Aussie dollar. We've still got to put in pullback to end of trend on this chart, and we've also got to see exhaustion selling and blue professional bars. So I'm not saying that the downtrend is over by any means, but we could just have a little bit of technical bounce on the Aussie dollar after having those kind of amateur down bar type days. Crude. Now, I got out of my crude. I was quite happy to be out of that, and people may be thinking, well, look, now it's above $100. That was kind of dumb to sell it when it was on its way to an uptrend. I'm perfectly happy with getting out of crude for the time being. I think long term it is an interesting kind of play, and I would like to get into a long-term kind of crude position. But what I'm waiting for now is this pullback to dirty end of trend has to work out. The cyclical energy has to work itself out. Although it's kind of broken above this pullback resistance level, this still had that cyclical energy still has to kind of work itself out on the downside here. So this was Rambo pattern on Thursday, a little bit of a big range bar on the Friday, but I'm still waiting for this kind of test down and that cyclical pattern to kind of complete on the downside. So there's still some cyclical testing that needs to be done. This isn't quite enough for me. That blue professional bar kind of maybe is short covering rally, kind of setting off to the downside. We need to test back into that kind of area just to make sure that all the sellers have sold and that we can kind of start a proper rally in crude again. So I'm just waiting for that. I'm not worried that I've kind of maybe kind of ditched my position. Well, I mean, I was super late to ditch the position, but that maybe there was a better exit for me. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm just waiting for this thing to kind of show the right signals. A blue professional down bar, kind of testing back into that kind of mid-90s type area would be a perfect kind of signal that things are kind of looking interesting for crude again. Start to kind of reconsider that as a trade. So there we go, a little bit of a run through of the charts going on there. I'm not sure I'm going to do something in terms of an outlook for 2014. My wife and I usually do a little bit of thinking about our kind of overall plan for the next year around this time of year. We're not big on kind of New Year's resolutions or anything like that, but I might put something out just in terms of kind of looking out for yourself and what we're thinking about in terms of planning for the next year, because I don't know, I feel as if the last 6 months for me personally has been a little bit slow. You might have noticed that in the kind of the updates to the blog and so on. Partly it's the market. The market's been pretty uninteresting for 6 months. The previous year, 2012, was an unbelievably kind of fun, interesting kind of good trading kind of going on. Everything was happening quickly. This last year has been a lot slower of a year, and I feel as if I've just kind of got stuck in a rut a little bit. So 2014, need to get out of that rut, need to kind of rethink a little bit in terms of priorities, and might do an update in terms of what at least we're thinking about in terms of our kind of plans for the new year. So anyway, enjoy this kind of time off, and looking forward to the next couple of weeks trading.